All right, so this is another video about virtual reality. So if you're not into this, totally cool if you don't want to watch this one. But this is a topic that I think is really important with regards to whether or not virtual reality takes off and becomes the next smartphone device that millions or billions of people around the world are using. And it's such an obvious thing that it's really surprising to me after I watched this video with Meta's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, that he doesn't understand this, or at least he just didn't mention it in this video. But I think it's one of these things that when you're knee deep into a company, sometimes you get so lost in your own narrative that you forget the bigger picture or the most important elements. And I think, unfortunately, Mark is lost in his own narrative about the Quest and about why he feels the Quest is superior to Apple Vision Pro. So I want to play this video really quick. I'm going to point something out to you. Essentially, he made this video, he put it on Instagram. It's him kind of just showing off and explaining why he feels, of course, Meta Quest 3 is a superior VR headset to Apple's Vision Pro for various reasons. And he's actually not wrong on probably all the things that he's listing in this video. So I'm going to show you at the end of this video what he's missing and why that one thing that he's missing is actually the most important point of whether or not people are going to adopt the Quest or they're going to adopt Vision Pro. And I think this is important and relevant for us as music creators is because I'm always looking for the next horizon, the next, environment, the next platform or the next industry that we can potentially monetize our music in. And I think VR AR is certainly going to be one of those that we have to seriously, wrap our arms around. So that's why I'm really keeping a close eye on this stuff. But let me just play this video real quick so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, what Mark's talking about, and where I feel he and everybody who's involved in the VR headspace need to kind of not get so lost in the weeds of the specs and the narrative, but zoom out and think more about the consumer. Let's get into this.
All right, guys. So I finally tried Apple's Vision Pro. And, I have to say that before this, I expected that Quest would be the better value for most people since it's really good and it's like 7 times less expensive. But after using it, I don't just think that Quest is the better value. I think the Quest is the better product, period. And, the different companies made different design decisions for the headsets. They have different strengths. But overall, Quest is better for the vast majority of things that people use mixed reality for. Now, my friend Kenny is actually capturing this video on Quest's high-resolution mixed reality pass-through right now. We're just here in my living room, and you can see his browser windows and whatever else he's got running up here. So yeah, Quest 3 does high-quality pass-through with big screens, just like Vision Pro.
So he's kind of just saying, listen, all these things you're getting excited about with Vision Pro, we can do it too. And now he's going to list all of the things that he feels Quest 3 is superior at. And again, I don't disagree with him. I think he's probably right on most of these things, but it's all irrelevant.
But we also designed it to be great for a lot of other things. Moving around, playing games, hanging out with friends and socializing, working out, and more. Quest, I think is just a lot more comfortable. We designed it to weigh 120 grams less, which makes a really big difference on your face. There's no wires that get in the way when you move around. It's a big deal. Our field of view is wider, and I found our screen to be brighter also. I also noticed that Apple's headset has...
And you can even see as he's going through this, he's looking down. So he has a list of features that he wants to make sure he doesn't forget on this video to say, we're better at this, it's lighter, we got no wires, all the wider field of view. So he's actually got all of this written down. You want to make sure he doesn't forget any of these, which I understand it's important to do, especially for a public video like this. But again, we'll get into why that doesn't matter.
This motion blur as you move around, which Quest is just a lot crisper. Now, Apple's screen does have a higher resolution, and that's really nice. But I was surprised by how many trade-offs they had to make to the quality of the device and the comfort and ergonomics and other aspects of the display and artifacts in order to get to that. Now, for input, Quest supports precision controllers that are great for games. Both headsets support hand tracking, but I found ours to be a little more accurate. Apple's eye tracking is really nice. We actually had those sensors back in Quest Pro. We took them out for Quest 3, and we're going to bring them back in the future. It's a nice interface. It's not perfect for everything, though. For typing or complex tasks, you're going to want...
So he's just kind of talking about they do amazing things. They have all the things that Apple has. They're going to bring it back, whatever. All right. So this is the important part, though. Right here.
That's only available on Quest for now. So, when I look around, it seems like there are a lot of people who just assumed that Vision Pro would be higher quality because it's Apple and it costs $3,000 more. But, honestly, I'm pretty surprised that Quest is so much better for the vast majority of things that people use these headsets for with that price differential. Now, look, I know that, some fanboys get upset whenever anyone dares to question if Apple's going to be the leader in a new category. But the reality is that every generation of computing has an open and a closed model. And yeah, in mobile, Apple's closed model won. But it's not always that way. If you go back to the PC era, Microsoft's open model was the winner. And in this next generation, Meta is going to be the open model. And I really want to make sure the open model wins out again.
Okay. So a couple of things he's saying right there, which kind of to me shows, first of all, he got pretty rattled. He's calling people who love Apple fanboys. Not really a good look to kind of insult, a big chunk of the marketplace that you potentially want to win over, right? I mean, you probably want people who are now interested in VR because of Apple dipping your toes into this water. You don't want to alienate them by calling them fanboys. So he had this really well thought out video with all these notes and all these things he wanted to put in there. And then he had to just throw in an insult into, a mild insult, but still an insult. So that's the first thing I can tell that he's bothered by this. Okay. Secondly, all of these things that make the Quest, quote unquote, a superior product overall, all the specs, all the abilities, all the technology and all this kind of stuff, and obviously the cheaper price, all of that's irrelevant because here's the key point of this video. Apple made virtual reality, augmented reality cool. That's it. It's that simple. Okay. People wearing the Apple Vision Pro, might look goofy. It's kind of ridiculous to wear these massive, huge goggles, but got to be honest with yourself. If you or I were to walk down the street and see somebody wearing them, we probably would ask them and talk to them and say, whoa, you've got one of those Vision Pros. What's it like? Can you see me? What are you seeing right now? You'd probably want to look really close to see what their eyes look like. It has the cool factor to it. And I know that it's not a perfect device and it's super heavy and it's super expensive and there's a lot of problems with it. Obviously, it's the first iteration of it. But Apple, love them or hate them, they have cool built into their brand, okay? Premium, well-designed, but most importantly, socially acceptable. That's what cool means, socially acceptable, okay? The Quest and Mark Zuckerberg, where is he at? Over here. They don't have those things built into their brand, okay? You see somebody wearing a Quest, you might be kind of interested in it, but it doesn't have this cool, wow, almost like you're spotting a celebrity in the wild appeal to it. The Apple Vision Pro does have that because it feels like a revolutionary new thing that they marketed up and hyped up and just made it really interesting. So the reason, I think, one of the main reasons why the Quest 3, all the iterations of the Quest have not been cool, have never been cool, and might never be cool in terms of being socially acceptable or interesting or exciting for the general public to really jump into. And if you haven't been following, they have not been selling that well. It's been a very underwhelming sales. Their sales numbers have not been very, very impressive. I think one of the main reasons is because this is the guy who's in front of it. Mark is not a cool guy. He's very successful. He's done really well with Facebook, with all his companies. He's, multi-billionaire. He runs his companies very efficiently. He can obviously withstand a lot of pressure and scrutiny and all this kind of stuff. But of all the things that he's accomplished in life, I don't think that he's the cool guy that people want to emulate or be like, right? He's not one of these CEOs that a lot of people really do look up to in terms of being a cool person. So when he straps on the Quest 3, it's not something that all of us are going like, wow, I'd like to be like Zuckerberg, right? So ironically, this is my advice to Mark, which I know he'll never see this and he'll never take it. That's okay. But if he wanted to double sales like overnight, all he'd have to do is just take himself out of the equation. Stop talking about Quest 3. Stop being the face of it. Stop giving the presentations and the keynotes about it. Stop giving the sales videos about it. Stop giving the announcements about it. Step back. Let somebody cool with, whatever that means to you, or however you can find somebody that has that social acceptance, come and be the face and the front of your product. I guarantee you that will make the biggest difference. Not only is the cool factor important here, but Mark is not necessarily a trustworthy person in the public's eyes. They did a big rebranding a few years ago, going from Facebook to Meta. There's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the reasons is that Facebook was, and still is, a fairly damaged brand in terms of trustworthiness. People don't really trust Facebook. They learned so much about how their data was being used, what they could and could not do. Once their pictures were uploaded, having those being stored on some data server forever, your information being sold to third parties and foreign countries, and all of these scandals that happened with Facebook over the years, that's built in, for better or worse, that's built into the Quest 3. So when he's getting up here and trying to tell us, get into the metaverse, come and join us on this great, amazing new platform, we're all going in, and you're going to treat us the same way you treated us the last time with the last platform that you were in charge of. That's cool. I'm good. I'm good. I think I'll pass on VR for a while. I'm just speaking from my own personal feelings on this. And notice how what I'm talking about has nothing to do with specs. I don't care how long your battery life is. I don't care how great your resolution is. I don't care all the great things you can do with the gaming controllers and the platforms and the content, and it's all impressive. That's great. I probably don't trust it though. I don't trust you, and it's not cool. It's just not cool. And I think that's where Apple has the biggest competitive edge here. And so I don't see a lot of people talking about this, but I do think it's going to be one of the main sort of stumbling blocks for this becoming a mainstream product and a mainstream consumer product that becomes the next smartphone. Because remember, when the iPhone came out, it was cool. It was clunky. It was slow. It had a lot of problems. It was very limited, right? It wasn't a perfect product at all. In fact, it took until probably iPhone 3, 4, 5 before it started to feel like it found its stride and it became something that we all were kind of going, okay, now I feel this is something that even the late adopters were getting into it. And I think the same thing will happen with Vision Pro. It's going to take probably version 3, 4, or 5 before it gets slim enough, small enough, lightweight enough, and also, you know, improvements and adjustments made based on feedback from the users before it becomes something that most people, even those that are late adopters, are going, there's some cool things you can do in that VR, AR stuff, and I'm not able to do that. I like to maybe jump into this. But in order for any of that to be possible, this has to be something that becomes very desirable and something really cool and socially acceptable. So I think Apple had that part figured out, and that's why they launched it the way they did and the manner that they're doing it. It's not a perfect product, but I think they're going in the right way. I think both platforms are going to have their place and purpose. I don't think one or the other is going to win out. As Mark here is trying to make this dichotomy, it's going to be the open model that wins and the closed ones aren't going to. I just don't see that happening. I think the meta will continue on and it'll be used for certain, right now, gaming seems to be its primary function. And for us as content creators, music creators, lots of potential opportunities to get music, you know, synced up and placed in a lot of these virtual environments and virtual games and all that kind of stuff. But Apple, I think, is kind of not necessarily, and Apple's never really been a gaming company. None of their computers have really been designed for gaming, primarily. They've been really more about productivity, social, photos, videos, you know, editing, that kind of thing. So I think more on productivity and work is where Apple really is going to shine. And so they're going to probably focus more on that side of the market segment. And Meta will be, you know, focusing on other sides of it. So I think there's going to be a place for both and for two different purposes and needs. But this is just something I thought was interesting. I don't see a lot of people talking about this, so I wanted to just share my thoughts with you guys. So for those of you that are into VR and AR, what do you think? Do you see what I'm seeing here? Do you have a different take on this? I'd love to hear your comments below. I'm just personally excited for VR in general. I do think that there's a future and a hope for the Quest and for Apple Vision Pro, but I think Apple's sort of dipping their toes into these waters really, for me, got my excitement once again going for VR, AR. I thought it kind of had fizzled out after a few years of me experimenting with some of the headsets. But when they jumped in, I didn't buy the headset, of course. But now that they're in there, it's given me this hope that there is going to be a really cool, amazing, interesting future for us moving forward. So we'll see how this all pans out. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. So make sure you do comment below.